me enough.
Okay.
That's so lovely. So thank you so much, Laura, that you have again you have come to this conversation. Beautiful to see you again. And some of our listeners have been asking when is going to be the next, not say program with you. So I welcome you again to our conversation. And
Thank you.
tell us, we haven't spoken since October. How have you been?
Um, there's always something going on. You can't ignore all the energetic things that are going on around us. All you have to do is just open up your eyes a little bit to see what it is. And then you see it begin to kind of blossom around you. The people that show up all have the same curiosities, the same questions, the same feelings, but there's a lot more people that have been reaching out than there were a year ago or 2 years ago. I see this momentum building, and I see where it's going. Between the last time we spoke and this time, um, you had even suggested that you had this, uh, like this compelling feeling that you wanted to identify these inner earth locations and energetic locations. Well, I was having the same things. What I didn't realize is that over the last several months, I had been building a little archive of all of that content away for myself. Now, later on, if somebody was interested in seeing these little 3-minute like tours of these inner earth cities I knew of, then great, here they are, they're ready to go. Um, I never know really what I'm doing these things for until the time comes that it's shown that they're necessary. So anyway, just about the time that you had reached out and said, I got this idea about something I want to do, that like the day before, Helena, I had already put this into motion. I like to see things from a Google Earth perspective. And so I thought, let's just start plotting this stuff out and see where we go. So I started with those 10 inner Earth cities I knew, plotted them on the surface as close to those locations as I could find. And then I decided to take there was a YouTube video that was sent to me that made sense, that identified 27 current 3D underground cities. And so, okay, let's plot those in as well. And so we can see where those locations are. Then I started to plot all the energetic locations, the ones I've been to, the ones I've heard about, the golden tie allotments that I understand these areas that are predisposed to Earth's new higher frequency. Egypt and Glastonbury and Shasta and Australia and all these places that we're aware of. What we don't realize is that there are more energetic places that are becoming known. So anyway, when I was finished with that project, that's when I reached out to you, and it wasn't really finished because I keep adding something to it every time I see it. I stuck it in a Google Drive file, and anybody else who's interested in this content, send me an email, I'll give you access to the file, and we can all kind of build this archive together and see it from a planetary perspective.
Yes. Yeah, like you say, exactly about 2 weeks after our last conversation, I had the idea. It came like, I need to ask you. It was like the Earth image, the image of Earth. I wanted to create something. I thought maybe I would be able to do it or find an IT guide or someone. And then I asked you, and you just said it.
You see how there's no coincidences to any of this?
No, absolutely no. And I must tell you, oh, lovely, beautiful. Yes, we have the image here because we were unable to technically create the 3D mobile version. Never mind, I might be able to insert it here later. And Yes, go ahead and describe it because I'm so excited when I saw it. Just remembered. There have been some people who wrote emails to me asking about whether you know any, me or especially you, if you know any entrances to the inner earth. And I was just like, yes, we would all like to know.
That's what this is for. I've been jotting down things in my journal that's occurred to me and sharing that. But every time that you can make it more visually, not just for everybody else, but for me, it's much more meaningful when I can see what it is that we're all communicating about. So this project started with that in mind. I wanted to see where these places were from that perspective. Um, I don't know where to go with it next. It was unfortunate that we couldn't really show it in real time, but the mechanism uses Google Earth, which isn't really Zoom friendly. So I can't show this in real time. What we're showing is a screenshot I took of, one of the views when you get into Google Earth, but it's just, I had created another file that has these overlays on it. So when I go to Google Earth, I stored this file in Google or Earth or Google Drive so that if somebody else wants to view it, I can share it with anybody. And there's dozens of people that have responded to this already just to kind of familiarize yourself with it. As I've been going along and I find something else, I'll hop back in the map and add it. So you see, like those blue ones that you see, those are the energetic places I am familiar with. The yellow ones are the golden tile allotments that I know about. The red ones are current, real 3D, real underground city locations. And the white ones, I think those are the inner earth cities, like Atlantean colonies and Lemurian colonies, and places, just kind of waiting to be shown. There are more than what I know, but every time I see one and it resonates, I will add it to the project. And then anyone else who has access to the drive will have access to this information. When I could find images that went with it, I did. Um, a few
Mhm.
days ago, well, it's been a few more days than that because I worked on this part for 2 or 3 days. Um, my sense of the Mayan culture and it's like Central America and Mexico, I started to find where those locations were. And if you were to look at that part of the map, there's so many blue energetic places from off planet to see that. So many former Mayan pyramids, temples, all over Mexico, Guatemala, Belize. It's incredible. Some of them have been there so long they've been overgrown by the jungle, but there are many of them where these things, however long they were built, still exist. And believe me when I tell you, there are energetic properties to these places.
I can see that you have added quite a few since I last saw the map in November, probably, or December. And I can't wait to look at it again in 3D, to scroll down. And so I'm really excited to see so many. I've actually had a look at some locations closer to us, so we don't have to really fly to America each time we want to see something. And I found there were some, you might even have it on the map, maybe perhaps Italy or Croatia. It's such a beautiful location.
I was really shocked and amazed when I went back and looked at kind of Europe as a whole, including Scandinavia and all the way down to like Africa. And you saw the number of instances that were there, both real-time underground places now and energetic locations that are all over. There is a lot more concentrated across that part of the planet that I've found, as opposed to even the United States and Africa. And although, you know, a, a lot of attention is given to places like Sedona and Shasta and those places in the United States. And I'm sure it's because a lot more attention has been given it from people that have been there. But I don't want to take anything away from these other places on the planet because they are no less energetic. Let me emphasize that. And there's probably other wonderful stuff to explore in Romania and the Czech Republic and Croatia and Netherlands, and go. I can go on and on. Those places, in my mind, are more the birthplace of where we can find elementals and the Druids, and that's where that influence came from. So my heart would love to visit that place. I'm content with what I get to see here energetically in the United States, but there's a whole lot more that I really sense that the awareness of these energetic places is growing. That some of us that had an idea about it before are more curious about it now. And then there's a whole other following of people that had never been drawn to these places in this way, and yet they are now. So I can't explain why the phenomenon's going on. And frankly, I don't care. It's interesting for me to see that people are finally picking up on what is going on here, because all of this is preparation for New Earth. We are almost there. It's not like we're waiting for it to happen. This process is almost completed. And all the things we've been talking about to get people's attention is to help them ready themselves for what's taking place.
That is really amazing. I can tell you that the interest in visiting these places, the thing that very thing we are talking about here is really increasing, and
Yes.
perhaps the craving for mystery has always been there, and some writers have been writing about the deep cities, but it's really growing. And Lowell, I would like to know, how did you use what methods did you use to find these energetic places or these cities with certainty?
Well, after I visited Telos, I didn't need anybody's help with that particular visit. It opened up, that's when my guides led me to the fact that there were more inner Earth cities. And people began to send me information about things that they had read and come across. So there were a few books that Radu Cinemar from Romania wrote. He was in charge of what they called Department Zero or Department One, whatever it was. He was in charge of this contact between the Romanian government and all of this metaphysical information going on. There was a little more acceptance when he was writing these books, but at the end of his tenure, he wrote, I think, two books that had to do with inner Earth locations, and they were both in that vicinity. I think one in Transylvania and then one in another place. But anyway, when I saw the pyramids, the Bosnian pyramids, it made me sense that, oh yeah, we're just opening up to other places on the planet where this exists, so that when we start to tell people our stories about the experiences we've had in the United States, this is to explain to you that it's a planetary energy that's going on. This isn't isolated to one particular area, my friends. This is going on all over the planet, and we're seeing all the evidence of it taking place when we pay our attention to these earthquakes and the volcanic activity that's taking place. The sun is active and is in solar maximum state right now and is going to be there for a while longer. Although it seems like over the last week or so, the sun's been in a little more of a lull. Don't be fooled by that activity. She flares and spews when she feels like it, but her conditions are right for her to feed whatever plasma energy is coming from her and spews it out in all directions in the solar system. But with her level of activity right now, Earth is getting in the way more often than not. And combine that with the idea that our magnetic field protecting the Earth has been deteriorating over time. It's almost like there was a cosmic design for Earth to finally be jolted into her new kind of consciousness. I guess that would be the way to explain it best. The conditions are happening. More information, more energy is coming to the planet with a weaker magnetic field. Look at all of the activity you have. Now, there's a part of me that wonders whether, because our technology is such that we can track and observe these phenomenon more often and report them all over the planet. The internet was beautiful for sharing that information. So I wonder, in the past, when our technology wasn't really this sophisticated, whether this was still going on back then and we were just totally unaware of it, or whether, technology is assisting us to understand that this is happening more often than not. My personal evidence to that would be the first time I went to Shasta and visited in July, and I ended up staying for 5 weeks. I was out searching on the mountain for energetic places. I didn't know what I was out there looking for. I wasn't looking for anybody, and I wasn't following the paths everybody else follows, but there was something like I could feel energy in these places I was hiking in, and you want to go out and find the next one. Each year I return.
Yeah, may I just interrupt you? So before
Yes.
you saw Telos, you kind of looked up Manchester as a very energetic place before. Is that is that what you're saying?
Well, I didn't go to Shasta with the idea I was going to go there to find something magnetic, energetic. I was guided to go there.
Mhm.
And then I will be introduced to the things that I was supposed to pick up on when I was there. Each year I went back, it seemed as though it was easier to find these energetic places. And there were more of them. To me, that tells me that when the time comes when these places are supposed to be activated, they're going to be easier for everybody to find, not just those of us that are already in tune with this vibration level. Yeah.
Yes, yes. I think, as you saying, everything is basically everything is very easy, very simple. It's people who had been making it complicated. But I feel, as the voice of God or the source, whatever, is very tender, very fragile. So as we are more attuning to it, that's when it becomes more easy to find those places, and that their strength grows. So that is just what we are really so excited about.
That's all true. I just keep going back to the fact that I was unaware that any of this existed
Mm.
until it came into my field and I became aware of it. And then, oh no, these
Mm.
are real sensations that we're meant to have. And
Yes,
as humans, we're evolving through these changes. And I'm just here to report what's going on with me. It seems like it resonates with what's going on with others because there are energetic things that is going on with them. Um, I keep coming back to this project to help people understand that the stories they've heard about Shasta and Sedona are not the only places on the planet. If you take a look here and see that there are other places on the planet already energetically charged to this new level of vibration.
I
And
can
that's
see
why
so
people
many
are
of
being
them.
drawn. Yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah. Um, could you tell us a little bit, because I know you study the solar activity a lot. Could you tell us a little bit more about a recent solar activity? Last time you compared it with a lid that is like a little bit and then until it's ready to blow up.
Yeah. For the last couple years, when I had come to the conclusion, and it made sense to me that when Earth's, rise into her new phase is going to be associated with some type of a solar flare, solar phenomenon, however you see that playing out, that totally resonated with me. And that's when I started watching the sun's activity. Now, when I started 2 years ago, she wasn't in solar maximum. And when you'd see these coronal holes, especially Earth facing ones, and you understood what that stream of plasma coming out of here, what it did and what effect it had on anything in its path, that's when I began to kind of associate changes in the Schumann resonance. And when that would rise, oh, it was always right after the sun seemed to spit something at us. And now we've grown into, over the last year, we are in that condition that's known as solar maximum. The sun is at its most active right now. And what we used to see 2 years ago, occasionally, like once a week or so, it's happening daily. The number of active sunspots on the sun's surface now this time of year can vary anywhere from 100 to over 200, all at the same time. Now, if you were to see Earth's scale next to the sun and see what our tiny little thing is like in comparison to her, now put into perspective those CMEs that get pinched off and headed out into space, or that solar wind stream, that big coronal hole that looks dark in the middle of it, that's just like one big wind tunnel blowing out plasma as this thing moves around. And there have been some really wonderful illustrations that NASA has done to kind of explain all that. Then you understand this whole bow shock concept. When that energy from the sun hits the Earth, it's magnetic, it's electromagnetic energy. So what it's looking for first is a way to kind of attach to the planet. Those are the poles. This is why we see the aurora activity that we see. That's this electromagnetic energy taking place between what the sun is sending us and when it hits the Earth. It hits those poles, both north and southern, and then finds its way to the core. Well, Earth, as you see her as a little capacitor now, just took an energy jolt that somehow she needs to express. That energy that came to her has got to go somewhere. So here come your earthquakes. Here come
I
the
see.
volcanic things that follow. Here come the tsunamis that follow those things. We are not out of catastrophic things happening on the planet yet. The only people that seem to be concerned by them are the ones that are affected in the areas they're in so far. I've lived through a hurricane and been displaced by one, so I know to a degree what that means. But man, when we've been watching what's been wiping out places because of mudslides, flooding, fires, all this is part of this purging process by the Earth to go from this phase to the next one. And we're here to be part of it. If you believe in incarnations, previous lives, which I absolutely do, I know that we chose to be here to assist the planet through this
Yes.
process. Yeah.
You just said that when the auroras that we see, the colorful lights, that's also very interesting that they actually hit the Earth and they aim to the core, that they are charging the planet.
That's right.
That might be
That's exactly right.
that might be a new information for a lot of people because they see
Um,
it as the lights above just.
it took me a while to really understand all of that. And when I saw these illustrations, understood our magnetic shield, and saw what really happens, because there's a way for us through the satellites that we put out there to watch this phenomenon take place. And then there are some wonderful little models that show us that graphically on what that looks like when that sun jolt finally hit us. You can kind of see the illustration of the bow shock kind of collapsing, and then how it almost bends behind the Earth as as this field of plasma goes past the Earth. Some of it hits the pole and digs into the Earth. The rest of it kind of slides around the Earth. But when it reaches the back, it completes that circuit again and then climbs back to finding the poles. So we don't get hit once. We get hit at least twice by the first shock that hit us directly. And then when it completes its circuit behind the Earth and you're thinking it's gone, no, no, no. It followed that electromagnetic path back to Earth. And wow.
Mm. Wow. And of course, we are expecting this year a big event that everybody's talking about, a great sorry, the flash, the great sun, you know what I mean.
Yeah, the
Sun
great
flash,
solar,
solar
the
flash.
great solar flash. Um, I've been reluctant to say what I was going to say. When I read about the golden tie allotments well over a year ago, and I saw this projected timeline they had, half of me said, everybody needs to know this. And the other half said, the other half are going to freak out because they're not going to understand that there are catastrophic things still yet to play out. That's all they're going to focus on. They don't see the end game to all of this and what our role in it and our little carbon bodies here for 80 to 100 years. We're here to help spirit learn more about itself. That's our job. We're
Yes,
evolving along with everybody else, and we chose lessons no one else chose on a path is unique to us. No one else is doing what we're doing. And when I'm finished, my experiences will go into the collective Akashic records. And everybody will benefit from the things that I learned and you learned. And that's good and bad because we're in a duality density, aren't we? We're here
yes,
to learn the good and bad of three-dimensional things. But as I've said before, and I will repeat again, the good news is that Earth is done with 3D lessons. It's just a matter of time before her new incarnation takes place. So when I see this active sun stuff going on, it could happen today, Helena, as well as it could happen next year or 5 years from now. The energetic plate, let's say, has been set.
yes. The fast changing frequency, the shift.
Yes.
As in cymatics, as you see, the change in frequency causes sudden change in the pattern. It's just so clear it's going on. Yeah, and it's true. I feel like in a waiting room, let's say, because we all feel, I mean, not all, but so many people feel that we are kind of waiting for something. We are done with this 3D world, and we just really want to be able to express ourselves and to just live on a different level.
Yeah. I've tried to explain and I do my best not to be affected by all the rest of the chaos that's going on because there's plenty of it to choose from. We were warned that there would be plenty of chaos going down and that systems would be unraveling. You can see the deterioration of um, lots of programs that we had along the way from control we thought we didn't have. But we're all sovereign beings with free will. We just let our decision making just go to somebody else and never claimed it back. Well, there's enough of us now that know the difference. And I'm not willing to give away my free will just like that, just to follow somebody that really doesn't make any sense.
Yes.
I see the final separation of the timelines. We had been talking for a while, and I had heard people discuss over the last year, especially, that we were on multiple timelines. And it took a while for that to really resonate with me and understand what that meant. But there are those of us that are vibrating higher, right? And the people that are vibrating at like the rest of what is going on 3D Earth. And we were existing together, weren't we? There are
Yeah.
those of us who can tell you about those higher vibrational, higher dimensional experiences and come back to report it to the rest of us. But now I see it's not a political statement. I'm not saying it from that perspective. But now, when we've seen, the new administration take over here with the first executive orders, here is where the timelines are splitting. Now you can see here is the 3D timeline following along on its way to entropy with everybody who still thinks that we should be separated and there is an us and them mentality. Then there's the rest of us heading to New Earth that knows we're already connected to everybody else, feels high vibrational things coming in our direction, unaffected by that. Well, here is where the planet is finally splitting. And this is New Earth going in that direction with those that vibrate accordingly. And here are the rest of them staying to play out their 3D lessons before Earth in her third dimensional form finally entropies away.
Lowell, the thing you've just mentioned, you couldn't say it better. We very much follow what's going on in America. We really do follow. We are like, we're not really interested in much what's going on in Europe so much or in the Czech Republic because the politicians are asleep. But what his administration, the new, is doing is just so amazing. I mean, I follow it every day, and you can see, you can feel this is like a breeze of totally fresh air, like new, like it has never been here before. And they are going their way, they are doing their thing, the justice, everything. And then there are people who still keep, criticizing them, making them into, they have their own mind, totally like two different groups of people. It's just,
It's true. You're watching it play out. Here is where, if you didn't believe this is going on before, just take a look at what's going on right now. And it won't take you much longer to really understand what's going on. Then you have a choice you get to make. Are you interested in things that raise your vibration and make you feel good with everybody else? Or are you stuck where everybody else is stuck and understand that there's still an us and them to every situation that we're in? I don't believe that we are because I don't see it that way anymore. And I've certainly drawn other people into my field that think the same way.
yes, yes, we are surrounded by the same people we had decided a long time ago. And occasionally we dip our toes, as to say, into the pool of people who think still negatively, etc. So I'm just surprised. I don't know how it can coexist. But let's go back to, we have a little bit more time left with you, with your beautiful presence. Thank you. Is there anything else that we could mention about the inner cities? Because I mean, I'm getting ready to go, for example, to Croatia, to the mountain range of Velebit. There's supposed to be some very, very magical and strong energies. So let's say maybe like 2 weeks, like what you did and walk around. But is there anything else you would advise to people or to just chill maybe, just take
No, I love that suggestion, and I hope other people pick up on it. The thing in my mind that made me different from everybody else is I got my ass up off the couch and I went out to get my own answers, just like you're suggesting. Now, there's something that's drawing you to Croatia about something energetic that's there. So, first of all, I never ignore that. And I love to hear when people talk about areas that might not be as well known, because perhaps it's your responsibility to help us understand what that is and go there and sense it and then come back and report it so that it can be plotted on the map. Lots of these energetic places, the blue ones, were places I knew people had had experiences before, and evidence is left behind of that energetic field. When you walk around on those pyramids that the Mayans were in, you can't help but feel that energy, right? Everybody can. You go to Shasta, you feel the mountains energy. You go to Sedona, you feel that energy. That's what I'm talking about getting in touch with. And again, we are being introduced to new areas. So perhaps if that area in Croatian, it's probably still hot and it's just been dormant. I see a lot of these areas as waiting for some light worker to come along and reactivate the area so
Uh-huh.
that it is conducive for the rest of the people that are coming. The areas that I heard about these, especially when I began to learn about the golden tie allotments, these areas on the planet that are already predisposed to higher vibrations. Um, I knew there would be more. So I took what I knew of and I plotted those to begin with, knowing that there was going to be more that was going to show up. And now I say that understanding that when we learned about a lot of this stuff before and the other incarnations that Earth has been through, there have been landmass changes. And we can't rule out that the last and next solar blast that comes in our direction doesn't sink land masses or rise land masses, because that's what happened before. If you're a fan of Lemurian Atlantis and you understand what happened on the planet way back then, those areas sunk. So I'm not saying that with this new change that's coming, with this last thing where the Earth is going to go through a pole flip, is it possible that there might be landmass changes then too? Absolutely, positively. For us to
Yes.
think that we're going to look at the globe and think that it's still going to be that way later is probably erroneous.
Yes, I agree with you. It has been said that some island ranges, like I'm not sure whether it's the Hawaiian or another one, like you have lots of little islands next to each other. They are actually the former mountain ranges, and that sank, and they could just re-emerge.
That's exactly how I see it, especially the Hawaiian Islands. If you were to see uh, an off-planet view of that, like through Google Earth, and you can see through the water, you see that the Hawaiian Islands are the tips of mountains that were there before. And if the ocean sank, oh my goodness, there'd be all kinds of land that surrounded those ranges and probably extend the mountain ranges even further. So in my mind, here's evidence that that took place. There are places near Bermuda that have the same kind of outlines underneath the ocean as well that people have been finding and reporting. And so you can see lots of evidence of it now, whether you want to believe it or just ignore it and go back to, whatever, TikTok you're watching. There are actually things that are taking place on the planet while, we're kind of living our little lives.
Yes, I can't wait when it changes, Lowell, because I know that it's like we are living in 0.01% of what is possible, and I just can't wait to be able to go out there, to have nothing to worry about, food and the money, and just go and explore. And just,
Yeah.
I have one more question. It might sound naive, but I've heard something about the sun. Someone said that sun is actually not the hot lava thing that we were taught at school, that it's actually very energetic and it's light.
Keep going.
Do you have any idea if this is based on any truth?
I do. Um, that's an accurate statement. And so let me try and put that into perspective. We are three-dimensional beings living in a physical world here, and we need to define things in that way to make it meaningful for human beings. I need to understand the physical part of things. So when we look at the sun, and we have been sun-burned by it, we have this idea of what we think that is. So now, in order for you to understand the statement that you made and the way that you characterize the sun, you have to really embrace the idea of dimensionality. And those conditions exist here on Earth as well. We and Earth is represented at least through 9 dimensions, at least. We are residing in the third dimension, the one of duality. 3, 4, and 5 are physical realms, but 4 and 5 are higher frequencies, higher vibrational areas that we are now kind of straddling, touching into, and coming back and reporting on it, because we're almost done with this third dimensional thing. In order for us to understand where I went in Telos and where Radu Sinamar was talking about in inner earth realms, Shambhala, you have to really understand that those are physical realms that you can't get to in your third dimensional space. And they are unaffected by heat and cold and all of that. When we think of what's in inner earth, we think, who can live there? Because, if I understand that the middle of the earth is this molten mass as well, how can anybody live there? Well, there might be some truth to the mass of that in third dimension, but in higher dimensions, they're unaffected by those
Wow.
things. And there are life forms on the sun that are higher dimensional beings, totally unaffected by what we think is too hot to live in.
Oh,
Those are not affected in those higher realms.
wow.
Does that make sense?
Yes. It there will have to be more realization, but for a start, it makes sense.
That's a real look. You either have to just surrender yourself to understand the ideas behind dimensionality and then go with it, or you don't. But if you're not going to, then whatever we're talking about here is going to be lost on you, because
It,
it's even still hard for me to try and articulate what dimensionality is, because there's really no words in 3D that can explain it. We want it to mean something physical that we can feel, touch, taste, hear, whatever it is. We're ignoring the sixth sense, the feeling sense that we have, that is the interpreter for understanding those things that we're meant to feel, and not use the rest of our five senses to try and interpret.
mm, yes, it would be the same like an aunt would try to understand and describe what a human being is. It's kind of a metaphor to use,
That's
metaphorical.
a great example. I hope people can kind of put that into concept, but it's right. The hardest thing that anybody that I've come across that's had multidimensional experiences is to try to explain what a multidimensional experience is.
And you wrote about it on your website.
I try. What was coming to me, I just get these profound thoughts, and I would jot them down, because I knew that this didn't come from me, and that it was something that I wanted to, go back and review later. When you have a succession of those things, then you begin to appreciate, higher intelligences are communicating with you, because none of this was anything that I learned in school, church, friends, hobbies, whatever it was. None of this information came from that source, and yet I know that this is true.
Amazing. So, Lola, I think we are going to close so that we do not end up like last time, and so that our listeners can have the wonderful conversation as up as soon as possible,
Well, we
as
always can.
ASAP.
And, I was, over the last few weeks, the interviews I agreed to do, we kind of get to the point where you all seem to have a lot of listeners. And especially in your case, I was shocked by when you took the first Ethereal Edge podcast and translated it, and all of a sudden, thousands of people were there ready for that information. It made me appreciate much more people who don't speak English are still hungry for this information. So bless your heart for having done that. Um, uh, I said that because each time we've finished one of these and we've kind of come to the end of our discussions today, I know that there are a lot of other people listening in that if they had the opportunity to ask them, but they would. And so I'm making this offer. And I know this is a little more complex because I don't speak Czech and a lot of your listeners don't understand English. but I'm absolutely willing to do something live where they can all come into the Zoom room. I've got 100 seats. We can do as many up to that. And if they want to engage with us, they can. So, it's not just listening to this information. If you have questions you really want answered, here's the opportunity to do that. So
And
if you
what,
can think of a time and date that would be conducive, you just let me know and we'll work it out.
and are you talking about doing it for the Czech community, or would you organize it more
Your
worldwide?
community. There are others that are going to be done. I know Tracy with Ethereal Edge, we're organizing one for her audience as well. And
Wow.
there was one other that I can't remember offhand, but there was another one as well. And so it's time for people that have these questions and don't want to just listen to it later. Log into the session. We'll give you the credentials and ask your questions in real time.
That is amazing. I will announce that and ask whoever wants to join, who can speak English. We will have to think about whether it will be translated. I don't suppose so. It will just have to be in English.
Well, I don't know if it's going to be in real time. Then perhaps we do have a translator and we'll take some more time. Like, it doesn't have to be limited to an hour as far as I'm concerned. And if it takes longer to do the translations, I'm going to leave that up to you. And you decide what would be appropriate. And
Okay.
the bottom line is I'm happy to do that, willing.
Okay, I will think about that. Perhaps I could be translating for you, and the people could be asking the questions. We could limit
Sure.
to one hour, let's say, of your time, and then that's wonderful. I'm so
Okay.
excited. It's spreading.
It
So,
is, and that's why this is the part of my day that I look forward to when we get to sit down and communicate with a message that's going to go out and people are hungry for it. I'm good with that.
Lowell, I can barely describe how pleasantly I felt in your company. Thank you. And there were some messages, comments under our video that people seeing you were so like feeling enlightened. They really love your energy. So I have felt really brilliantly in the last hour with you.
Oh, thank you.
And it will transfer to others as soon as it's finished and translated. So I thank you so much, and I look forward to Zoom meeting and our next meeting sometime.
Excellent. Me too. Thank you for inviting me.